Welcome to TV Africa. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Loima, but first are the headlines. Museveni fronts Uganda's priorities in visit to UAE. South Africa begins days of mourning for anti-apartheid hero. Explosions rock military base in Somalia. Algeria to face Ethiopia in a must-win Group A match on Tuesday. Welcome once again. Now the news in detail. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni yesterday held the first batch of meetings in Abu Dhabi as part of the engagements scheduled in his 3-day official visit to the country. The president, who arrived in the country on Sunday, is expected to hold several high-level meetings with investors and leaders in the United Arab Emirates, as well as attend the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Summit on matters of climate and socio-economic development. We have more with Naluko.
According to Mr. Museveni, his first engagement on the Arab land yesterday was meeting a number of investors and other stakeholders whom he christened as Friends of Uganda to discuss the investment opportunities back home. The president said the discussions revolved around Uganda's need for value addition to the raw materials produced in the Pearl of Africa. On various fora, the president has often stressed the need for value addition, especially to agricultural products such as coffee, maize and leather. While launching the Coffee Industrial Hub and Coffee Cooperative Farmers Expo in Tungamo District last year, Mr. Museveni vowed to fight anyone standing in the way of value addition, promising to disregard the MP's decision to terminate the Uganda Vinci Coffee Limited deal. With his hosts in the United Arab Emirates, the president also discussed the business opportunities in Uganda, accompanied by the investment incentives offered by his government. He also proffered his gratitude to the business community in Abu Dhabi, saying they are ready to do business with Uganda.
The Uganda National Examinations Board has embarked on a nationwide exercise to register learners in secondary schools for purposes of collecting continuous assessment scores with effect from Term 1 of 2023. Ahumza with more.
In 2020, the Ministry of Education and Sports, through the National Curriculum Development Center, rolled out the revised lower secondary school curriculum, and one of its components included the continuous assessment. It's from this background that the Uganda National Examinations Board, UNAB, has announced a nationwide registration exercise of all learners in secondary schools. According to UNAB, this will help them in collecting the continuous assessment scores.
The Uganda National Examinations Board is embarking on a nationwide exercise to register learners in secondary schools for purposes of collecting continuous assessment scores with effect from Term 1 of 2023. This is in accordance with the revised lower secondary school curriculum. Accordingly, all secondary schools are required to register with UNEP to be able to submit the CA scores of their learners.
Speaking to journalists at Uganda Media Center in Kampala, Dr. Peter Wakabi from the Uganda National Examinations Board called on the students to utilize this holiday and have their details captured by NIRA.
These learners are advised that if at all they previously registered, they don't need to go through the process again. They simply need to verify their registration status to determine whether to provide those fresh details again. NIRA registration is confirmed by a national identification number, and this can be done by downloading the child's NIN slip from NIRA website, and the URL for NIRA website is www.nira.go.ug.
He added that schools that will not have registered for continuous assessment will not be allowed to register their learners for the Uganda Certificate of Education.
Secondary schools which will not have registered for CA, that is continuous assessment, will not be allowed by UNEB to register their learners for the end of cycle examinations. Schools without UNEB center numbers shall be required to apply for continuous assessment through the UNEB e-services portal.
The executive director for the National Identification and Registration Authority (NIRA), Rosemary Chisembo, called on the public to report individuals asking them to pay for registration, saying the service is free of charge.
In Africa, in our culture, we raise an alarm. Wa la 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 la, raise an alarm. Raise an alarm, so and so is asking me for money. Don't be quiet about it. That's the only way we shall drive out this vice. Raise an alarm. Flag us, send us an email. But do something not to pay for the service. Do everything not to pay for the service. Because it's free, it's paid for.
South Africans will on Tuesday begin 7 days of mourning in honor of Frene Ginwale, who became the founding speaker of South Africa's first democratically elected parliament. Ms. Ginwale died on Thursday night, aged 90. President Cyril Ramaphosa has directed that the national flag be flown at half-mast around the country until the evening of Tuesday, 24th January 2023, according to a statement from his office. More details will be announced later on an official memorial service that will take place in Johannesburg next Tuesday. During the 1960s and 1970s, Ms. Ginwala lived in exile in Mozambique, from where she helped many prominent members of the banned African National Congress escape abroad. Ms. Ginwala also traveled around the world, drawing international attention to the abuses of the apartheid era. Let's take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. Turkish spy chief Hakan Fidan on Monday discussed intelligence sharing and other issues of common interest with Sudanese military leaders in Khartoum, state broadcaster Sudan TV reported.
Mr. Fidan separately met the head of Sudan's ruling sovereign council, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and his deputy, Lieutenant General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. Both meetings were attended by Sudan's spy, Chief Lieutenant General Ahmed Ibrahim Mufadali. Sudan TV said Mr. Fidan conveyed his country's support for the framework agreement that the military leaders signed with same pro-democracy groups on December 5th. Turkey was among members of the international community that backed the deal, which was meant to pave the way for the return of civilian rule in Sudan. However, pro-military and Islamist groups have opposed the deal.
Heavy gunfire and explosions have been heard on Tuesday morning at a military base in Hawadali town in Somalia's Middle Shabelle region. Authorities believe the attack is being carried out by suspected members of the Al-Shabab jihadist group. A top military officer is among those killed in the raid, but there is still little information about the exact number of casualties. It comes just days after the army captured the strategic port of Haradea, which has been held by the jihadist group for 15 years. Al-Shabab has lost huge swaths of territory since August last year, when government troops backed by clan militia launched an offensive in southern and central Somalia. But the group has continued to carry out attacks against mainly government buildings and African Union troops. Over the last week, it has carried out 4 deadly bombings in the central region of Hiran. Moving on, Equatorial Guinea Foreign Minister has denied claims that a prominent dissident in the country died while serving a 6-year jail sentence. Julio Obama Mefman, 51, died in Oveng Azem prison. His MLGE3 Arab movement is quoted as saying it accused the country's regime without elaborating of torture.
The foreign minister, Simeon Oyono Esomo Ango, said the deceased died in a hospital and denied accusations of torture. He said Obama Mefman died in a Mankomo hospital due to an illness he had been suffering from. The head of Equatorial Guinea's only authorized opposition party, the Convergence for Social Democracy, condemned Julio Obama's death in prison. The death of Julio Obama in the Oveng Azem prison is confirmed. CPDS condemns this fact. Obama was a Spanish citizen, and the GE government must open an international investigation to clarify what happened and allow all prisoners to be visited by their families, Party Secretary General Andres Esono Ondo said.
Let's once again take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our business news today, South African opposition groups, trade union and business owners have threatened to sue the government over the crippling blackouts in the country. They have given the government up to Friday to stabilize electricity supply or face legal action for contravening its duty to provide electricity. The opposition wrote a demand letter to the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan and the Chief Executive of the State Utility Firm Eskom, Adre Deluta, saying the state was in breach of its obligation to provide electricity. The blackouts have persisted for more than a decade amid poor management and corruption at State Firm Eskom. Recently, the country has been having up to 10 hours of power cuts daily. The problem has prompted the president to cancel a trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos to hold meetings at home with business and labor leaders. In our health news today, learning in primary and secondary schools resumes on Tuesday in Malawi's two major cities following a cholera outbreak that killed hundreds of people. Schools in the capital Lilongwe and the commercial hub Blantyre had remained closed for at least 2 weeks after the Christmas holidays.
The cholera outbreak began in March last year and has so far killed more than 750 people. Infections are still high in Lilongwe and Blantyre. Health Minister Khombize Chiponda says schools now have access to safe water and improved sanitation facilities, which will go a long way in reducing infections reported in schools. The minister was optimistic that infections in schools would reduce due to improved sanitation facilities. Malawi is among 31 countries globally hardest hit by cholera. Last week, the government asked for international assistance as it was running low on medical supplies. The widespread cases of cholera in the country are as a result of the aftermath of Tropical Storm Anna and Cyclone Gombe that caused extensive flooding last year and destroyed the country's water and sanitation systems.
And in our sports news today, Algeria head coach Majid Boughela said on Monday that his side are approaching Tuesday's 2022 African Nations Championship Group A clash against Ethiopia as a win. The The Algeria began well with their campaign in Group A at the newly inaugurated Nelson Mandela Stadium when they defeated Libya 1-0 to scoop full 3 points. Ahumuza with more.
The Algerian coach Majid Bojera said, "Before they see every match as a final, it is an important match for both teams." He adds that one team stays in the race to qualify, and a team like them has to win tomorrow's match to qualify. Algerian players are now upbeat and are hoping for positive results in their second game against Ethiopia, who are also hoping to record their first win in the tournament. Ethiopia earned 1 point from a draw over Mozambique last Saturday. The stadiums have already sold full capacity of 41,000 tickets as at Sunday. Algeria will maximize on the return of Aymen Mahisu, who scored the first winning goal but suffered a minor injury during the opener, but will still miss the services of Derby.
That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned.